We are coming to you live from the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you can handle the truth. Good evening from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Frank Allen. Tonight, we have a TI, John, from Arizona, once again, and this time he is going to go into the technology of a lot of the things that are happening to targets, and he is also going to present information on building a secure room. Tomorrow night, we have Kevin N. once again, who has fought a 25-year struggle with the country of Canada and their many mass graves that have been uncovered. Okay, you can call in and ask a question at 800-313-9443 or listen at 605-313-0163. Our newsletter is free, and you can receive a copy by writing Frank at targetedmassachusetts.org. In the subject line, type newsletter. Or you can visit our site at targetedmassachusetts.org. And in the navigation, go to contact information. Please fill in your name, email address, and cell number, or you can call me in the U.S. at 1-508-857-8334. Targeted Massachusetts Northeast Conference airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. By phone, 515-604-9715. Access code 708922. ID targeted. If you'd like to join us by computer, in your address bar, type freeconferencecall.com/wall/targeted. Targeted Justice is hosting a rally and protest event in our nation's capital. This is taking place October the 18th through the 22nd. The registration fee is $35 and includes a free t-shirt. We encourage you to request a 5-minute audience with your congressman. You will need to make a request several weeks in advance, and time is drawing near. Make the request through your congressman's website and ask for an appointment on October the 21st or the 22nd. The address for that website is as follows: https://www.house.gov/representatives. Okay, John, are you in the wings?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, let's hear what you have to say.
Well, thanks for having me back on your show, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great. It's great having you back.
Yeah, it's been a busy weekend, actually, in terms of organized stalking. It kind of did escalate for not only me, but for other people. We were texting today. Some woman over here, I think she's in Phoenix, and she was also experiencing more, I think, direct energy weapon attacks. And I myself have experienced also increased escalation of harassment, remote monitoring and everything.
Yes, right now I'm running a small experiment. It's actually not very complicated. I am correlating the Schumann resonance versus the attacks.
Oh, good one. That's a good idea.
So the Schumann resonance should be 7.83. It has been as high as 60 to 80 this summer.
Oh, that's pretty high.
Yeah. So so far I've seen that during this particular time, it would seem that targeting runs a little harder. But I have much more research to do over many months.
Yeah, it could very well be. And, maybe the system is also monitoring this radio show, so it's maybe having an effect. People are finding out and possibly finding out better ways to protect themselves and build countermeasures, to get rid of all these symptoms and harassment.
Yes, I was hoping that you would go into great detail on your knowledge of building a safe room or a Faraday room, in your case, and its microwaves effects on people. You mentioned skin depth and what it actually did to cells when it comes in contact with cells.
Oh, yes, that's right. We were talking about the skin depth. So like when a radio wave, a traditional radio wave, strikes a material, it penetrates the material, and how much it's attenuated. I think there's some very specific ideas of how much it's attenuated. I think it's 1 over E, a special number, E. It's like an irrational number. It's used all over mathematics. I think that distance depends on the material, and I think they call it the skin depth or penetration depth. And it depends on the frequency, the resistivity of the material, and I think the relative permeability of the material. And so that's what people have to look for when they're trying to build a Faraday cage. And that's what I've done.
Okay, why did you choose iron specifically?
Well,
what properties
the reason why.
Does? Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah. The reason why I chose iron is because it has the lowest resistivity and the highest, I think, magnetic permeability, relative, I think, permeability they call it. And that's why for most materials, common materials, there's other materials that have higher. They have specially made materials that have, a lower resistivity and a higher magnetic permeability. But for common materials that people can buy in great bulk, iron is the one. And you can buy it like in a pot or whatever. That's the reason why I chose it. It has the highest, it attenuates the low frequencies that are emitted from our bodies the most for any given thickness. That's why I chose it.
Ferrous metal, in this case, iron being extreme, is you found to be the best.
Yeah. The more pure the iron, the better it is. Because if you try to get steel, and they actually sent me, there were some videos I sent in, and one of them I showed a box, a steel box I made from a refrigerator. They sent me steel instead of iron, and steel is basically like iron with impurities like carbon, and that alters resistivity, magnetic permeability, all that stuff. And so you need thicker amounts to get like the same amount of shielding that you would from pure iron.
Okay, that's interesting because a natural magnetic ore would be actually iron, I would think.
It would. Yeah. It would. You would have to, if it has magnetite on it, it could be partially iron. Iron is one of the most common metals in the Earth's crust. But it's also usually have other impurities in there. Like these, when they form from the Earth's crust, they usually have other minerals and things inside there. So you have to purify it. Make sure you extract all the iron, get rid of all the other impurities. So yeah. For a time there, I was actually trying to do that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And then you lined this room, top to bottom, walls, everything with this iron, correct?
Yes, that's critical. So all the surfaces, the vertical surfaces, the floor and the ceiling and all the other surfaces have to be pure iron. And they all have to be, if you can, maybe weld them together or make sure that they're tightly fitted so there's no gaps. That's critical. And,
okay, and what were your findings when you apparently have covered the door as well? What were your findings in terms of, we'll say, bringing a meter in there and taking measurements? What did you learn?
Well, I really haven't. Did I? Let me think. Have I done that? I think I did. I'm not too sure if I did, but I believe it did reduce the amount of power that you got from cell phone signals. And almost it weakened most electromagnetic signals. And one more thing, you got to be careful when you're dealing with iron that's that large. It's pretty heavy. It's about over 100 pounds for one sheet. That's about as tall as a person. So you may have to have 2 people or more people help you with it because they're really heavy.
What is the thickness?
2.5 millimeters, but you can get thicker metal. You just have to make sure you contact the person that's selling it to you, business selling to you.
And this room is totally grounded, correct?
Yes, I believe it is. I haven't grounded it, but it does work, either way you look at it.
Okay, it's my understanding that if you put a diode in the line, the grounding line, it will prevent any backflow from ground back into the room.
It possibly could, yes. Any excess charge will just flow out, and none might flow in. So yeah, that could do it. You could try that out.
I've also heard of other people actually not on a Faraday cage, but in particular, bedding and whatnot like that. They've actually put a capacitor in line with the ground so that it would build up and then release the charge.
Oh, I see. That might work. It could. It's just that it's. Let me think. It could work. Though I don't know how well it attenuates it. It depends on. I suppose it depends on how well the sheeting serves as an antenna, and it interacts with the wave coming in. And it probably, if you have something really that thin, it probably has enough power to get through that sheet, hit you. And so, that's one of the things you got to be careful of. Try that out. It could help, though, to experiment with all that.
Yeah, we'll continue and inform us as to what your next steps are.
Yeah, so and the key thing when you're doing all these things is you want to look at that, if you can, analyze how they propagate once they strike the material. Most of the time, depending on how well they conduct and how well they conduct, and the magnetic permeability will depend on how much they penetrate, how much power gets through. That's the big one. So that's how you do that. For that one, you got to be careful, though. The one thing I always tell people online is that you have to make sure you prevent illegal entries. And the reason I say that is because it's happened to me. Sorry about that. It's happened to me before, where if you're not careful about that and you go to some event and you leave your residence alone, all of a sudden people come in and install sensors and bugs, and all of a sudden your Faraday cage doesn't work. That's happened to me. And it took me like about a year to get back to where it worked again.
I just wanted to give you a bit of information on locks. There is a lock cylinder called Medico. And if you're familiar with lock cylinders, most of them have the pins all coming down on the key at 12 o'clock.
Yes.
A Medico lock has the pins coming in at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So you have two
Okay.
sets of pins coming in at an angle. And from what I understand, it's non-pickable. There are only 2 keys. You get them both. It says do not duplicate on that key. And the government uses medical locks as well. I'm sure it's a hybrid.
Yeah, that is a good idea. People can experiment with that and see how well that works. Because I've also, I also actually drove over 300 miles to Los Angeles to buy these special, door locks that supposedly weren't pickable, and apparently they can get through those as well. So you have to be super careful with all those things. So yeah, you have to test them first and see if they actually can't get through. Because I've had that happen to me. People getting in even after I bought these really expensive locks that I had to go travel all the way to Los Angeles to get. So.
Yeah, I guess there's an Italian lock maker who has an excellent lock cylinder. It kind of looks like a Jaguar key. It looks like a pole with just impressions in it. I don't know if that's the lock cylinder that you picked up.
No, it was something else. I forgot what his name called, Bylock. But see, that's the thing. I don't know if they picked it. It could have been they might have some other way of maybe. I guess when they're making these locks or something, they can get a duplicate key somehow. There's a record somewhere or something. I don't know. It's just that they have so many resources. I can't rule anything out nowadays.
Yeah, in this computer age, many things that were once private are now free to anyone who wants to look.
Yeah, exactly. If the locksmith uses a computer when he's making it or is near a computer, they might be able to use remote monitoring on him or just hack into the computer and get the info. So all of a sudden, an unpickable lock, they don't need to pick it. They just make the key that fits in that lock or something. So yeah, that's one way you can try it. But I have, if you put hasps on the inside of your doors, hasps like old hasps, put them on the inside with the padlock. That eliminates illegal entries while you're inside. And if you want to limit, from my experience, if you want to eliminate illegal entries when you go outside, like if you leave your residence alone, then you put a hasp on the outside of the door. Make sure it covers all the screws, because otherwise you just unscrew it. And you put a padlock on there. It could be any padlock, a cheap one, as long as it works reliably. And you tape it up and put a lot of tape on there. And that, for me, has worked for the last 5 years. I haven't had any illegal entries ever since I've left. If I leave the house alone, I haven't had any legal entries since then.
Very good.
Effectively eliminated. Yeah.
Okay. John, we have to go to commercial. We'll see you in 3 minutes. Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you, folks, for listening.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
We are coming to you live from the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you can handle the truth. Good evening from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Frank Allen. Tonight, we have a TI, his name is John from Arizona, who has built a safe room or a Faraday room, which is totally covered with iron on the inside, not steel, iron. And he's done research to find that iron is the best material to use. He will talk more on that. Tomorrow night, Kevin Annett from Canada and his 25-year struggle to uncover the atrocities that have taken place in his country. The mass graves of natives. You can call in and ask a question at 800-313-9443 or listen at 605-313-0163. Our newsletter is free, and you can receive a copy by writing Frank at targetedmassachusetts.org. In the subject line, type newsletter, or you can visit our site at targetedmassachusetts.org. And in the navigation, go to contact information at the top of the home page. Please fill in your name, email address, and cell number and a short message. Or you can call me in the U.S. at 1-508-857-8334. Targeted Massachusetts Northeast Conference airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Access by phone 515-604-9715. Access code 708922. ID targeted. If you'd like to access the show by computer, in the address bar, type freeconferencecall.com/wall/targeted. Targeted Justice is hosting a rally and protest event in our nation's capital, taking place October the 18th through the 22nd. The registration fee is $35 and includes a free T-shirt. We encourage you to request a 5-minute audience with your congressman. You will need to make a request several weeks in advance. Make the request through your congressman's website and ask for an appointment on October the 21st or the 22nd. The website address is as follows: https://www.house.gov/representatives. Okay, and now for our very special guest, John from Arizona. Go ahead, John.
Hey there, Frank. I was just looking up right now during the commercials, on Wikipedia, skin depth. So people can go to Wikipedia, type in skin depth, and then you click on examples. There's a little, in the beginning of the article, there's a little box where it shows you, links to different parts of the article. You click on examples, and it'll take you directly to that formula. And they say, well, we can derive a practical formula for skin depth, and you can look at all the different variables they have in there, constants they have in there. And so they have the relative permeability. That's the one I was talking about. That's the one that's pretty high for pure iron. And resistivity, which is pretty low for iron. And so if you do Wikipedia, search for permeability, electromagnetism, they give you a list of common values for common materials, and you'll see iron is like the second one from the top in terms of permeability. One of the materials with the highest permeability or relative permeability. And just below met glass, that's another type of material it also has very high permeability.
Question.
And you could yep.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Since this is ferrous metal, it can be magnetized. What are the odds that a configuration would become magnetized for whatever reason?
It could be. It's, I would imagine it's pretty small.
Okay.
Most of the...
Okay, we have another commercial. Thank you, John, and thank you for listening. We'll be right back.
Everything they tell you, believe in me, I'm with the high command. Can you hear me?
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Good evening from Boston, Massachusetts. Tonight, T.I. John from Arizona, who is teaching us about Faraday rooms or safe rooms and how to build them. Go ahead, John.
Oh yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks. I mean, yes, I was thinking about the question you asked before we went to the commercial, and it can be, there are some ferromagnetic substances, like tapes, for example, the old analog cassette tapes that can be magnetized if you impress a large enough magnetic field on them. They can retain some magnetization. Though also they have issues for iron though because of the way it's ordered. And I think it's also because of its kind of simple structure. It has no oxides in there. It kind of loses its magnetization pretty quickly because of the temperature that you keep it at. Usually loses its magnetization pretty quickly. But other materials can retain it. And yeah, that's true. Some materials can. And it's often used, these iron bars, I think. Yeah, they're often used to, I think, in electromagnets to increase the strength of the field and all that stuff. So they can lift cars and things like that.
Okay, what do you think would happen if you turn this into a magnetized box with a fairly powerful field? Do you think that would help it or hurt it or have no effect?
Well, it could. It may help. A very strong, like, static field, or is it like oscillating, like in strength, going up and down? I guess if it's static,
it would be help. Yeah, either electromagnetic or a passive system.
It could help.
Which would actually,
Yeah, it could very well help. There was a person who actually on YouTube made a helmet where we put magnets on it, and he put like the north and the south, two south poles together, something like that. And he said it helped a little bit. It could. Because I'm thinking maybe the sensors that read our thoughts or receive our thoughts, they might be very sensitive magnetometers. They might be able to sense very, very small changes in magnetic field. And maybe if you have a strong enough magnetic field, you might be able to jam the sensors. They can't, there's so much noise in the sensors that they can't accurately read your magnetic field emitted from your body. That might work. But also the magnetic field emitted from our bodies is varying. It varies according to, because it's a wave basically, 0 to 100 hertz. So it could work. You might be able to jam it if you produce an electromagnetic field very close to about 100 hertz, randomized spread over 0 to 100 hertz. That might work. So you might be able to jam it, like, they jam radars. They send out a very powerful frequency of the same, the radar receives, so they can't tell what everybody else is. That might be something you can try. Actually, I did try it, and I think I just found better results with just having it run pure like that. It was because they do a lot of interesting things with sensors.
I wish,
like, for example,
that I were a little closer to Arizona because I'd like to visit your room.
Yeah.
Find out if it stops assuredly V2K or RNM, because that's what plagues, us targets. RNM is no fun.
Remote no monitoring, that's a bad one. For me, it's the bad one as well. That's the one they use on most of the time. What happens is that they have a sensor close to you, and sensors outside the room or maybe around you, and they can subtract it, like, and take the jamming signal you're trying to jam, right? You're emitting this very powerful signal around 0 to 100 hertz, and what they do is they take it and they invert it and then run it through the processing and kind of remove it. Actually, it was a student that brought up that idea that they use when they're doing sound work on concerts. They use that to remove, I think, a lot of the background noise. So they might do something similar.
Okay, so they take it and invert it, and actually it becomes a noise canceling type of unit.
Yeah,
which are
so
very
you have to be very
popular
careful
today.
Yes, it is. So they have to be very careful. They have to make sure there's no sensors inside the room with you. And I might try it again. It might work even better if I rewind, because I put coils around the iron room for a while, and I haven't gone back to trying that. It might work even better that way.
Yeah, I was just thinking there's a very small, very inexpensive meter that you could pick up. It's a CC308, and it has an antenna on it. And you could take it around your room, and it actually works in a linear fashion. If you point the antenna at something, at an area, this is actually what it's going to, pick up. Mm-hmm. And it also has a small infrared light that is incredibly bright that will show up if there are any cameras in there. I sincerely doubt it, but there could be something in there.
It could be. The way I got rid of all that stuff was, it took me a while. I used sandpaper, and that didn't seem to work. They figured out how to process the signal. But I took a propane torch. You can go to Harbor Freight and buy the part with that shoots out the flame. Hook it up to a propane, and I exposed all the walls, and they got really hot, and that fried the sensors. And that's finally when it ended. Those sensors finally died because it fried them. And ever since then, it works. I have to do other things, too, to make it work, but it works if I put enough effort to it.
Yeah, they could have, before shipping it to you, they could have embedded nanoparticles into it.
Oh, yeah.
Which
they could have done that as well.
Actually, a GPS. They are many things depending upon how they were designed to begin with, but That's what I've been
Right.
studying as of late. And
that's the one thing.
I couldn't believe what they are doing today with nanoparticles and generally nanodust.
It's amazing what they can do with that stuff. It's just amazing. Now, the one thing about the nanodust, though, right?
Oh, I was just going to ask, if you bring a cell phone inside this room, does it still work?
I did try that, and it does reduce it down to 1 bar, and you can still ring it inside, but I think it's because there's some gaps in my Faraday cage that the guy who built it for me left open. So I bet you if you fill them up nicely, it should be able to reduce it down to 0. And so, but it works.
Fantastic.
I mean, if I go in there and I take other precautions, it works. They can't do remote monitoring.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
It really is.
Yeah. The nano
Could you,
stuff, and this is, go ahead.
Could you be so kind as to send me the information on the iron itself so that I can make it available to our listeners?
Sure.
In the community?
Sure. Iron info. Sure, I'll do that. I'll tell you who I got it from. I'll see if they're still around. Most likely they are. And, I'll do that. And that way people can buy it. It cost about $3,000, around that much money back then, like 6 years ago. It probably costs maybe a little bit less today. I don't know. But yeah, you can go order it from China.
Huh. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
the one thing that you will have to do, though. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you speak. I'm gonna stay off the floor here for a couple of minutes.
Okay. So the one thing people have to be careful of is they send you the same size sheet. So you may have to find a metalworking place near where you live, take the sheet and cut it. If people have the time, they can cut it with a cutting wheel. That takes a long time because it's so thick. So you just have to make sure you take all these precautions and, just be handy, a little bit handy, hire a handyman. Or if you're yourself a handy, you can do it. Now, in regards to the nanodust and all that stuff and implants, people do complain. I've seen people say that they have implants and nanodust. The one thing I notice about them, though, is that because they're so small, they have limitations in terms to how much power they can actually emit, transmit, and because they're so small, they also have issues with transmitting. Because, people have done work with ham radio, for example. People know that the length of the size of the antenna, depending on the frequency, there's a certain length of antenna that's its most efficient broadcasting. And so if they want to broadcast, use nanoparticles to broadcast like around cell phone frequencies, it's a tough deal because they're so tiny. Any antenna they have on there is going to be like microscopic size. And so the range is going to be pretty small. And so they must have some other way of taking that signal and sending it off someplace. And so that's one of the things people have to be careful of. And so when people have implants inside them, they can probably go out into the forest and get rid of, escape any surveillance. Because if you're outside of any cell phone coverage, any Wi-Fi coverage, that little implant's going to have a tough time communicating anywhere, including satellites. Because satellites, they're 11, a couple of thousand miles away from the Earth to be circling. And so they need special antennas, a lot of power. And so these are kind of the things people have to think about when they're thinking about nanodust and implants and all that. That they're limited in power and they're limited in transmission range too. So that'll work to our advantage.
What are your thoughts on 5G? Do you have any comments on that?
One of the things about 5G, it's very high frequency, and so a lot of it is absorbed. The skin depth, because it's so high, a lot of it is absorbed in just a few couple of micrometers of the skin or any material for most materials. And so I believe I've heard and read somewhere that it's one of the frequencies used for crowd control, I heard, 5G, because it's all absorbed on your surface of your skin, so it causes like burns and stuff. So, at high power, directed. So I think that's something we should look into. But I'm not too well informed on that thing. Gee. And one more thing, by the way. I remember I made a note about this when I was listening to Dr. Catherine Horton, and she was talking about how scalar waves might be used in some people's targeting, because a lot of people, and I noticed this too, when I was talking to TIs, that there was this one TI who had B2K, and I suggested, why doesn't he go underground? And he said he did, and he got weaker but didn't go away. And so that means that there is some effect. It could be a regular electromagnetic wave like a cell phone tower. And in fact, I've read or heard that cell phone towers, some of them consume more power than is necessary for regular cell phone operations. And so maybe these cell phone towers could be used for V2K. They might have other antennas, and it directs. These cell phone towers have the ability to steer the electromagnetic wave and to direct it, focus it in just one direction. And it has the ability to follow you while you're walking around, just like it follows people with a cell phone. So it might be something people might look into. But if there are scalar waves, there are ways to block them. I was doing research on the scalar wave stuff, and they don't exist in vacuum. There were some people on the internet making pretty good arguments saying that they don't exist in a vacuum. But if they are in a medium, like a plasma or something like that, then yes, they can exist in that plasma. So one way to people to shield themselves from scalar waves is to have a vacuum panel. And that's basically vacuum panel insulation.
Yeah,
so if
that's
you build a Faraday
that's
cage,
what I was curious about. You mentioned vacuum panels. Please elaborate. So vacuum panels, I've heard of scalar waves a while back, and I think some physicist on Google, said that they cannot travel in a vacuum because electromagnetic waves, by their very construction, the very physics, has to have a transverse component. But when you're in a material, then you could have these other modes, like a sound wave. It can travel like a sound wave in a plasma and possibly other materials. And so that is something that is a little bit more exotic. I mean, it's something kind of exotic, even if you type it in Google. So if you go to Wikipedia and type in waves in plasma, it'll show you terminology classification, and one of them is longitudinal wave. And that's like a sound wave, which could be interpreted as a scalar wave. So to block these, you could use a vacuum panel. And so this is like vacuum panel insulation, like they use on the space shuttle to insulate the astronauts from very high temperature differences. So it's basically just like a panel, like regular insulation, but it's hollow on the inside, and they pumped all the air out. And that's vacuum panel insulation. It's very good as an insulator, and it blocks sound from coming out. If people are experiencing sonic attacks, it blocks sound, because sound can't travel through a vacuum. And neither can a scalar wave. If there are any such things, they can't travel through vacuum. So that's another way people can shield themselves. Faraday cage, and then put vacuum panel insulation on the outside or inside. And that should stop sonic attacks, scalar waves, and regular EM waves. People can look into that. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. You've brought up, that's one point there that I would like to bring up with Richard Lighthouse. I was just speaking with him on our conference call, and he was speaking about scalar waves. And you are echoing a lot of the facts that he brought up about scalar waves.
Yeah, that's the thing with scalar waves is I looked it up on Google, and there's a lot of things to do with Tesla and interesting things like that. But I think if you look up longitudinal waves, which are kind of related to them, you look in plasma, you'll see that there is ways to block them. And vacuum panel insulation, you can go on eBay and you can look vacuum insulation panel, and you can buy one for $41. It's around 321 millimeters by 321 millimeters. So you may have to buy several of them, tile it in there. It might be able to help you block it.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. That might be something I might try myself.
Okay, yeah. Are there any other aspects of your safe room?
Oh, yes, there are other aspects. What you put inside is pretty important as well, is because I've experienced that many modern electronic devices appear to have remote no monitoring sensors built in. And even when I take them inside the iron room, they can still monitor you real time. I don't know exactly how they do it because I have a laptop. It was made in 95. It doesn't have any Wi-Fi built in at all, no Wi-Fi antenna, no Ethernet at all, wired, no wired Ethernet. Maybe it has infrared, but I was testing that laptop and I put it inside the iron room. I was watching something and sure enough, they can make references to what you're watching in there in real time through the metal. And that's the weird thing about it. That laptop should not be able to communicate, to the outside world wirelessly through metal. I don't know. Some exotic things they may have worked on there.
They have computers now that the government has, and they are totally isolated from any kind of network, any kind of Wi-Fi, and they have still managed to get into those computers. You've probably heard of that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it has something to do with sometimes with the way the temperature readings go, and also the sound and other things like that. That there is ways to hack into computers using other physical properties other than electromagnetics. That's pretty shocking, that they're able to do that. Even old computers. I have an old laptop from mid-'90s. Same thing. And one from the 80s, late 80s. I tried, they definitely can't do anything with this. Sure enough, they could. It's amazing. So so basically you have to get all of that stuff out of there. Anything that has any electronics, get it out of the iron room. Make sure the iron room surfaces are pure, that you blowtorch them many times, cooked all the sensors. And anything you put in the room, try to make sure it's iron or metal. That way you can blowtorch it and burn any sensors up. So you have a metal table with a metal frame and a metal cover, and everything is blowtorched. Obviously, you're not going to blowtorch and touch it, but let it cool down and put it in. Same thing with your chair and put it in. As lighting, keep it simple. No electronics, no LED, none of that. Incandescent bulb, the ones you can see inside, that's perfect. Make it simple if you can. Try to get one of those light bases that they use on the garage. You unscrew where the light bulb hangs. One of those might be good on a piece of wood. Keep it simple, because if you put anything that's complicated in there, like electronics, semiconductors, all of a sudden they can see in there somehow. But if you make it so simple, there's no electronics, let's say integrated semiconductor electronics in there, they can't do it. You have to keep it simple, and that's the one thing I always tell everybody.
So, do you sleep in there now? I assume you do.
No, I don't. It's one of the things I found out. It's hard to live in those rooms. It's like having a suit of armor on you all day. And there was a time I used to go in there for hours, and it worked. But it was just the impracticalities made it difficult for me to have a life, go to work, stay in the room. But, I sleep in a regular bed because I don't get any direct energy attacks or V2K. And so all they do is read my thoughts. When I'm dreaming, I don't remember my dreams, and because I don't remember my dreams, they can't use it really to harass me. So I only go in there if I'm going to do something with physics or something like that. Anything important that they can steal, I might go in there. But it's hard.
That's
it's hard living in there and having a regular life.
Okay, I hope we can go into more detail on such as grounding. Have you taken like a copper piece of round stock and driven it into the ground for ground, or are you depending upon your electrical system in the house for ground?
I will probably do electrical system for the house, because that iron room is in the corner of my garage. I could probably run a wire, maybe outside, and put it in the ground. That might work. That might be more secure.
That's what I would do, because I think I'd take a piece of, like, I don't know, 3/4 round stock, drill and tap it for like 1/4 20 or 1/4 28, and screw the bolt in there so that you don't damage the threads, and then drive the whole 9 yards into the ground.
That might work. That's a good idea. Oh, yeah, one more thing I remember is because it's so dry here, the ground is not that conductive, so sometimes you have to put like a big metal plate underneath the ground and then ground it to that. I remember that one guy told me that a long time ago. He was talking about when he used to live in a very dry area, and they said the grounding, you have to get like some sort of conductive to the ground, because if the ground has very little water content and it's all dirt, it's a tough time conducting, So it's a good thing, man.
Okay, we're to the point where we're just about out of time, and I would like to thank you very much for coming on once again. And I would like to learn more about your room.
Okay.
And maybe we can find some ways to help you, and you can help us.
Sure, no problem at all. It'd be great. I want to help people as much as I can, especially TIs.
Fantastic. Well, if you get interested. Okay, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Good night, John, and we will speak. And good night from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Rick.
Public Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSight Bonus. Those who are now FrontSight members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSight, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSight, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.